and visitors who enter the building during regular operational hours, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m., be fully vaccinated against COVID-19. Included, but not limited to, group activities, exercise classes, art classes, meals, billiards and ping pong, presentations, triad meetings, coffee with a cop, social gatherings, municipal trainings occurring during regular operating hours. Individual services include fitness room use, appointments with the outreach coordinator, shine appointments, foot care appointments, and massages. Services that are exempt from vaccine requirement, COVID testing, which will be administered outdoors, deliveries, lunch pickup by individuals, volunteers, or Hadley Town employees, municipal department, committee, and board meetings held outside of Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Urgent service calls, municipal elections when the Hadley Senior Center is used as a polling location, and the Hadley Senior Center will close to normal activities on those days. The definition of fully vaccinated is 2 weeks after the second dose in a 2-dose mRNA series, or 2 weeks after a single dose of the Johnson & Johnson. Should the CDC redefine fully vaccinated to include a booster shot, the HSC will adjust accordingly and require boosters to enter the building. Implementation. The mandate will go into effect on Monday, January 10th, 2022, and will be publicized broadly prior to this date. The Hadley Senior Center staff and volunteers will accept and record vaccine status data in the HSC database. Valid proof of vaccination includes vaccination cards and certificate of immunization from primary care providers, the State Department of Public Health, or documentation from a healthcare system or pharmacy. Verbal attestation is not valid proof of vaccination. Nothing in the vaccination order is intended to encourage senior center members or members of the general public to act as an enforcement authority. Indoor mask mandate remains in effect. Now I'm going to read a statement articulating the thought process that went into creating this policy. As you all probably are beginning to see, the new COVID variant, Omicron, is having a big impact on our town. Between December 11th and
Your sound's off.
What did she say?
She said the sound is off.
No, it's not.
It's on.
No, okay, sorry. Between December 11th and December 19th, Hadley had 48 new cases of COVID reported. Compare this to a month before when we were averaging 2 to 3 cases every 2 weeks. The Omicron variant is highly contagious. While we are learning that both the percentage of people infected requiring hospitalization and the rate of death appear to be lower with Omicron, we need to understand that due to the extremely high numbers of infections, the math tells us that many people will require hospital care and too many people will die. Cooley Dickinson Hospital has implemented their emergency operations, and their COVID dashboard shows a significant increase in hospitalized patients due to COVID-19 over the last 2 weeks. The senior center staff and members of the senior community reached out to the Board of Health to implement a vaccine policy for the senior center. They want the seniors of Hadley to be able to come to the senior center and benefit from their services, facilities, and communities with minimum fear of being exposed to COVID-19. The staff is all vaccinated, and they too want to be comfortable feeling as safe as possible as they continue with their work of serving our town. They also realize that if they get sick, the senior center may have to close. Hadley has 1,300 residents age 65 and over. 1,075 of these are vaccinated, 83%. 225 or 17% of 65 and over are unvaccinated. The Hadley Board of Health looks to science and facts when considering policy. Unvaccinated individuals are 4 times more likely to become infected with COVID-19. Vaccinated individuals who are infected with COVID-19 are infectious for fewer days than those who are unvaccinated. Based on these facts, it is clear that limiting entrance to the senior center to only those vaccinated will decrease the likelihood of COVID spread in the senior center. This is critically important as individuals 65 and over are at much higher risk of severe illness should they become infected. We'll now begin our public comment period. Prior to starting the public comment, I will delineate the procedure. Public comment will be limited to 2 minutes per person. Public comment should be directly related to the proposed vaccine policy for the senior center. We will not entertain comments that are not directly related to item 4 on the agenda. If you joined late, not going to be considering or discussing a proposal currently being considered by surrounding towns to address vaccine requirements for a class of businesses. That will occur at a later date only if it is approved by the surrounding towns. If you would like to make a public comment about the senior center proposal, please use the hand raise on Zoom. At the senior center, you will be given your turn. We are going to limit the public comments to 30 minutes. I ask that if you are in agreement with someone who has spoken before you, please just say exactly that. There is no need to reiterate what has been stated. Rather, simply state that you agree with what was just said. Your voice will be heard and counted. Okay,
Well, can I make a suggestion here? This gentleman, if we're going to start, he should obviously start because he's been here.
Okay,
and
good.
then we can. So I don't know if you.
oh, also, if you become recognized and you're speaking, please spell your name and your address.
Okay. All right. So, sir.
I put myself on the video, so I put myself so the rest of the people are here.
Oh, okay. So.
Okay. So I am on the Zoom now, as well as in the room. So we all set?
Yep, yeah, first.
My name is Tony Biden, a Cold Spring Land in Hadley. Thanks for letting me speak tonight. I have a couple of points to make, and I'll try to be quick about it since I know there are a lot of people who want to speak. My first point is that I don't think you should vote on this tonight. This is the first opportunity that I have had a chance to hear it. I haven't had a chance to actually read it. And as I'm assuming that a lot of the other people on this call are in the same position. They heard you read it and are trying to digest that and respond to it. If you just assume that you want to take a vote on that tonight, and we haven't even had a chance to really digest it and respond to it properly, I don't think that's appropriate at all. So I would suggest that you listen, put the information out there in a way that people can read it, and then vote on it at a future meeting. I don't know how was this. I don't know if this information has been delivered to anybody. I know that I happen to see it because I know it was forwarded to some members of the select board. Other than that, I would not have known that this was even going to take place. Some people may have seen the Gazette article that focused on Northampton and Amherst and mentioned Hadley. And you'll notice that there were, I believe I read about 300 people at the meeting in Northampton. It's because they knew about it and were able to think about it and respond to it. I don't think we've had that opportunity here at all. So I would suggest not voting on this, letting people actually understand it and vote on it. Just a couple of quick points on what I heard
Time.
Dr. Mosley read.
2 minutes is up.
Can I ask a point of clarification?
Yes.
Were you referring to the senior center only?
I didn't know what,
Because that's all we're voting on. That's all we're looking at. But my understanding was that, you know, all the other stuff is about businesses.
So that's my 2 minutes, that's what I got to respond to this? That's ridiculous.
Okay. Is somebody else who would like to
That's
speak?
democracy, you can still hear me, that is terrible, what you're doing. And if you think this is democracy, the way you treat people, you want to be treated with respect. You don't show the people having respect by doing this. And that's not right, what you're doing. And this board has always acted like this. And this board has acted like this since the pandemic. You have not treated people with respect. Nobody knows about this. Nobody knew about your mask mandates because you didn't publicize it. And then,
How do we see who's on this?
oh, I'm sure you muted me.
I think Willow's face there.
That's pathetic, honestly. Be ashamed of yourself. Resign.
Oh, yeah, if anybody else wants to speak.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak?
Yeah, I'd like to speak. I think I was first with my hand up.
Great, go ahead.
Hi, my name's Stephen. I live in Hadley. I follow the science as well, and I'm firmly opposed to this because I'm opposed to any discriminatory actions in Hadley. If you follow the science, and I follow the science, it is clear that the vaccinated and the unvaccinated can transmit at similar rates. And so why would there be discrimination against the unvaccinated? In The Lancet, which is the preeminent medical journal, just published this month, they have confirmed that vaccinated and unvaccinated transmit at the same rates. They also did an article in December which said the same thing. So the science does not support requiring vaccine passports at all. If we follow the science is clear. The vaccinated and the unvaccinated transmit at the same rates. And if that's the root cause of this, we shouldn't be moving any further than that.
What is your address?
There are far more, can I have my 2 minutes? There are far more transmissible diseases in the world. Tuberculosis, AIDS, hepatitis. Are we going to demand passports for those as well at the senior center? So if you have herpes, you can't get in? I mean, where does it end? There are 380 trillion viruses in humans. Some are good, some are bad, some are neutral. If it starts, it's never going to end. And I realize a lot of people are scared and there's information and misinformation out there. But if you read the science, we shouldn't be enacting mandates like this. Marie Curie said, "Nothing in life is to be feared. It is only to be understood." Now is the time to understand more so that we can fear less. And I understand we're not talking about broader Hadley right now, but this is a first step. Once it's at the senior center, it'll expand from there. There is no published study at all that's well designed that shows that the unvaccinated are at a greater risk for transmission than the vaccinated. And so we need to follow the science and not be guided by fear. Thank you.
What is your address?
What is your address? Who are you and what is your address?
Okay, do we have somebody else who would like to speak?
No, but I'd love to know the name and address of the gentleman who interrupted me. Where do you live? What's your address? What's your family's name? Oddest thing I've ever been asked for in my life.
The rules of the forum is that you give your name and address before you speak.
2 minutes are up. Is there somebody else who would like to speak?
I'd like to speak.
Please state your full name and address, not your first name only.
I'm not quite sure if I should speak. Joe Boisfort, 6 Mount Warner Road in Hadley. How are you all this evening?
Good, thank you.
Good.
Okay, I just would like to say, personally, I am against this 100%. I do have to tell everybody that the COVID is real, but if people are fearing this bad, then maybe the senior center should just be closed down. Now, earlier, I heard somebody talking about how many people in the town of Hadley who have been vaccinated and that the unvaccinated number is extremely low. On your exempt list of people to go into that building, okay, where are the number of non-Hadley employees, fire department personnel, DPW workers, and police that are not Hadley workers, that are not in that lovely number that you shared, that are unvaccinated? I know for a fact we have a pile of unvaccinated town of Hadley employees who could go into that building at any given time. And I also know for a fact that when they are exposed to COVID or get COVID, our town employees are still being paid by, yes, you, our government of the town of Hadley. But yet you want to implement these discriminating things against residents. This is 110% wrong what you're trying to do. COVID is real, yes, but the way we're going about this is absolutely wrong. Stop doing all the testing, get COVID shots and boosters readily available for the residents. That kind of fell off the face of the earth since the first vaccines came out. Make it readily available, work and be a proactive, not negative. I don't think this has any positive impact. If this is how you feel, discrimination, close the senior center then. Thank you.
I'd like to speak. I'd like to speak. May I speak?
Yes.
Sarah Strong, Middle Street. I'm fully in support of the resolution that the Board of Health read out. I totally support it 100%. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, may I speak? Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Rory Woods. I live in Hadley and I vote in Hadley, and I'm deeply concerned about the discrimination that will be practiced against people with natural immunity. I didn't hear that discussed at all. I want to refer you to the Israeli study, which I'll be happy to send you. It's quite comprehensive. It indicates that someone who has already had COVID has 13 times the immunity.
That's not true.
Yes, 13 times. I refer you to the Israeli study, and I'll be happy to forward it to you. 13 times the immunity as someone who has received any so-called vaccines, which many medical doctors, 60,000 and counting, don't qualify these COVID vaccines as vaccines, but rather as gene therapy. I'm also concerned because blood clots associated with COVID so-called vaccines, they heighten my concern. The blood clots were originally associated with AstraZeneca, then that was stopped only temporarily. More recently, people have been dying from J&J blood clot associated risks with those vaccines, so-called vaccines. So, you know, I feel that this is discriminatory. You know, I understand that people are afraid and they need to take their precautions, but also any type of a mandate like this will not survive a legal challenge. Any ordinance that singles out specific groups of people for disparate treatment is patently illegal in Massachusetts, as decided by our state's highest court, the Supreme Judicial Court. See, for instance, Commonwealth versus Washington. It's Massachusetts case law holding that, quote, the federal equal protection clause safeguards not merely against invidious classifications such as race, but also against an arbitrary classification of persons for unfavorable government treatment, end quote. Thus, a denial of equal treatment under the law is a violation of the Massachusetts Equal Rights Amendment and the federal 14th Amendment. Because if a government entity has carved out a denial of rights to a particular group, in this case, the unvaccinated, they are now referred to as a suspect class. Specifically, they are now a class that deserves the protection of the state's Equal Rights Amendment and the federal Equal Rights Amendment. Therefore, the town of Hadley, by any type of such mandate, would lose in court and would be opening itself up to damages claims by those harmed by such.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Somebody else?
I'd like to speak.
Is there somebody else who would like to speak?
Deb Palmer, I would like to speak.
Go ahead.
Deb Palmer, can you please give us your address? The last speaker did not and was asked.
Yes, I'm at 6 Hillside Drive in Hadley. I have a background in public health, and I fully support this idea that the senior center should be for vaccinated people. I'm an active user there. My elderly husband is as well and is immunocompromised. I don't believe that I follow the science also, and I've worked, as I said, I've worked in public health. I see no reason why we shouldn't have this this mandate, because the elderly deserve a place that they can go and not be in fear of being sick. I know that there's many opinions about the efficacy of the vaccines and the natural immunity, but working on the knowledge that we have now, I think it's extremely important that we do this. It might not be forever, but for those of us who enjoy the senior center, I believe that we have the right to have a safe environment. And this is, I believe, not too much to ask.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like
somebody else.
My name is Dr. Jen Avery. I am actually a resident in Shutesbury. I believe that what is happening at the senior center in Hadley, it represents the broader community mindset and actions, and I think it's very important to address. Evidence shows that we are not safer by surrounding ourselves only with people who are vaccinated. The vaccine does not mitigate death, sorry about that, or even transmission. As much as we may wish to feel that we are protected from suffering, death, and transmission, we cannot infringe upon human rights in order to achieve what is merely a pantomime and not a reality. A vaccine mandate of any kind would contribute to people feeling safe rather than being safe, and such a discernment seems important now. I stand strongly and firmly against any mandate, even at the senior center, or law that moves to relinquish or compromise a citizen's right over their bodies. Requirement of a vaccine in order to gain access to goods, spaces, or services is unconstitutional. I believe that people around the globe should maintain sovereignty over their bodies. Informed consent is not a situation that citizens will easily get back once surrendered. Placing the wellness of citizens in the hand of government and pharmaceutical companies signals a community whose desire to feel safe outweighs its need to be safe. Thank you.
Thank you.
That no one, you have to be a resident of town to speak about these issues. That should never happen.
Doesn't matter. She's right. She's right.
Excuse me, we are talking about Hadley. We are not talking about any other town. Thank you.
That's a violation of open meeting law.
I'd like to speak. I'd like to speak.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay, my name's Deborah Levinson. I live on 14 Hawley Road in Hadley, and I'm a senior, and I've attended events at the senior center, and I'm strongly in favor of the resolution as it was presented tonight by the Board of Health. I appreciate the work and the expertise of the members of the Board of Health, and I appreciate the viewpoint of the senior center staff themselves who requested this resolution. My understanding is that vaccinated folks are contagious for a shorter amount of time, and that is stated also in the resolution, and that is likely that the viral load is lower in vaccinated folks, and that in general, being vaccinated lowers the risk of transmission. And while we're facing this enormous surge in cases, I think it's important that our town do everything we can to lower the rate of transmission in our town, and particularly for our senior citizens like myself, so that we can be as safe as possible and we can protect the people who attend the center, who work at the center, and the healthcare workers who will need to take care of those who are who do become ill. So I thank you, and I strongly favor the resolution.
We have somebody else who would like to speak?
Yes, I'd like to speak, please.
Go ahead.
My name's Mariana Hinnanen, 7 Hillside Drive. I'd like to know, out of the new cases that you are talking about in Hadley in these last few weeks, how many of those people have been vaccinated and how many are unvaccinated?
During the public comment, this is not a question answer or a dialogue period.
Fine.
It's
So,
just
okay, so you are going to require the taxpayers of the town to be vaccinated to enter the senior center, but you're not going to require employees to be vaccinated to enter the senior center. This makes no sense, especially when the number of vaccinated
None of it
people are
does.
the ones who are getting the virus and transmitting it just as much as unvaccinated. I oppose this. I think it's wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else who'd like to speak?
I would. My name is Regina Roy. I'm a resident of Hadley, and my elderly mother attends the senior center. I oppose any requirement for vaccination to enter the senior center. I think this is a slippery slope. Once it's approved for the senior center, it will spread. I do all of my shopping in Hadley, and I am very much opposed to this jab. All the businesses and many others who are opposed to this huge overreach it will severely impact the town's tax revenues and destroy its business economy. The very moment who have filed to the International Criminal Court on December 6th, accusing Anthony Fauci, Peter Daszak, Melinda Gates, Bill Gates, and others of numerous violations of the Nuremberg Code. These include various crimes against humanity and war crimes, Article 6, 7, 8, 15, 21, and 53, which will lead to invoking Nuremberg trials for all complete enforcing this extreme violation of human rights, including yourselves. From the article, quote, from the desertreview.com. As we all know, before receiving a surgical procedure and an injection is considered such, there is a legal and ethical requirement that the patient be apprised of infection, bleeding, nerve damage, or even death. The patient usually signs the consent form following this explanation, and as we all know, whenever we receive prescription medication, we are notified of the potential risks on a package insert and usually a discussion with a pharmacist. These vaccines should be no different, yet they are. A person about to receive the jab is rarely told that there are risks of blood clots, bleeding, cerebral.
Time. Thank you.
Thank you. Somebody else like to speak up?
I would like to speak up.
Hey.
Hey, my name is Kathy Banis. My family and I are lifelong residents of Hadley, Massachusetts. We own our own business in Hadley. I would like to thank all of those who are speaking tonight and those that have shared their opinions Tuesday evening during the Northampton Zoom meeting, and more recently, tonight at the Amherst Zoom meeting. Residents and concerned citizens of Northampton and Amherst shared intelligent, thoughtful opinions and facts. I learned that over 90% of those who spoke during both of these Zoom meetings disagree, in fact, with the direction of their towns. I also learned that when it comes to an emergency meeting, the town of Hadley does not have sufficient outlets to send out such information. It is unsettling, so unsettling to see a small group of people who are supposed to work together for the betterment of their own town try to pass mandates without the input of their own citizens. You may have started this with the best of intentions, but something as important and critical as this, proper notification would have been appreciated. We can and we must do better. Thank you.
Thank you. Somebody else?
I'd like to say something. My name's
Go ahead.
Shelley, and I'd like to address the fact that the CDC back in July 21st, 21.
Shelley, can you give us your full name and address? Thank you.
Actually, according to the Brown Act, I don't need to. Thank you. 7/21, the CDC sent to all the labs about how the PCR test for COVID is faulted. It does not distinguish or show the difference between when you're testing positive for the flu or COVID. When you go in, you could be testing for the flu as positive COVID with the COVID test with the flu symptoms. You can't use just the data off of PCR tests when the PCR tests are faulted. If you go to the CDC website, underneath the laboratory alerts, after December 31st, they withdraw the request for the FDA to use it for emergency use. And they recommend everybody to find new tests. Testing
number to agenda item number 4, please. Is there somebody else who would like to speak?
I'll say something.
Go ahead, please.
This is Amy Parsons from 143 Mill Valley Road, also a member of the select board. I personally don't care if you get vaccinated or if you do not get vaccinated. That is completely your choice, your body, your choice. Completely fine. But unfortunately, the Board of Health doesn't actually have the authority to enact this. Jeff Blake and KP Law is essentially the legal authority for our town. And also, if we do this, someone can actually sue us, which will cost the town a significant amount of money. There is an email also that I think you were copied on, but that is all.
Thank you. Anybody else who would care to speak?
Hi, I'd like to speak.
I would like to speak if possible.
My name is Coral and I live in Hadley. I am not in favor of the resolution. Vaccine mandates at the senior center are unconstitutional. According to the CDC, the COVID vaccine does not prevent transmission or infection. According to the CDC, vaccinated people are not less infectious than unvaccinated people. Vaccinated people acquire and transmit COVID just as easily and as often as unvaccinated people. I understand that there is a lot of fear, but this is not the right path. Vaccine mandates are discriminatory. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Dunn, I see here. Did you want to speak?
Yes, I am a resident of Hadley. I'm on the planning board and a few other committees. I just wanted to say that I'm in support of this, and I'm saddened that I think even as little as 8 or 10 years ago, this would not have been so politicized, and we wouldn't have to argue if we believe in science or not. That I fear that a lot of the people who are speaking out here against this it's politically driven, and I don't know how many of them even would go to the senior center. And so are they being driven by talk show hosts or by concern about elders?
God.
So that's all I'll say. Thank you.
So Mark Dunn, I think the one who's making it.
Okay, anybody else who would like to
Pioneer
speak?
News Network.
Do we have anybody else who'd like, Andy Morris Friedman, I see a hand up.
Hi, Andy Morris Friedman, 45 Roosevelt Street in Hadley. I reject the language of the slippery slopeism that if we put this in place in the Hadley Senior Center, soon we'll have no civil rights and be living in a totalitarian dictatorship. I think people will still have their rights. You have the right not to get vaccinated if you don't want to get vaccinated, but that means you don't have the right to be in a public building if the Board of Health deems it's safer for the rest of us to temporarily exclude you until the pandemic ends. So if this is what the Board of Health feels is important for the safety of the general population of Hadley, I support you. Thank you.
Okay, I saw Jill, yes. Jill? No, okay. Somebody else? Jean Wilson?
Hi, thank you. My name is Jean Wilson, and I would like to speak. Thank you for this opportunity. According to the Brown Act, I'm just going to continue to speak. I am agreeing with the previous people who have said that the vaccine does not prevent the spread. It does not prevent transmission. And this is a very important point because in the Board of Health, your role is to protect the health of the public from the spread of the disease. But if you are choosing to do something that does not prevent the spread, then you are going against your own role. If you are choosing to adopt the vaccine mandate so that it will, and therefore it does not prevent the spread, you are not doing the right steps and you're participating in the deception of what the PCR testing is, and also the premise that there needs to be a mandate, the premise that the unvaccinated are spreading it. If you take a look at a lot of the studies and a lot of the reports of the fully vaxxed staff and passenger of the cruise line, you'll see that they're all vaxxed, fully vaxxed. But guess what? After a week, after 2 weeks, guess what? There are still cases. How can that be? They're all fully vaxxed. One must think about that. Does that make sense? Right there is a study right there to challenge the premise. I would just urge you to think about that. I do believe that you are trying to make the best decision for the safety, but please take a look at some of these things that just don't seem to make sense. And when they don't seem to make sense, you're instituting policies that will be discriminating.
Okay, thank you for your time. Thank you. Somebody else like to speak? Jill?
I didn't know if anybody could hear me. Am I on mute or unmute?
I can hear you.
Okay, did you hear me the last time?
No.
No. I'm Jill Sherman from 3 East Commons Drive. I support the resolution of the Board of Health. I think also besides protecting all of us and protecting the grandchildren of the seniors and protecting the shoppers from other towns, I think we're also protecting the unvaccinated people from getting really sick and ending up in the hospital by preventing them from coming in this venue. We're protecting the unvaccinated, and I'd also like to see the senior center continue to offer more of their wonderful vaccine clinics. Thank you for all your hard work.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anybody else who would like to speak?
Yes, I would.
Go ahead.
More than one speaker tonight has spoken about town employees. My name's Dan Zadanek. I'm the principal assessor in town. They've spoken about the fact I work for the town in the assessor's office.
And your name, sir?
Dan Zadanek.
Thank you.
And more than one person tonight has spoken.
Out of town people can't speak.
That's not true. Because you know where I'm going with this. More than one individual tonight has spoken about the vaccination status of town employees. And I would like to ask the question how they're getting this information. Is it coming from the Board of Health?
We're not having a dialogue here. So
it was brought up that town employees that are not vaccinated are that people are bringing up that they know who they are.
Well, right
now. And I'm asking the question how that is being leaked out.
We are entertaining public comments that relate specifically to agenda item 4, which is the vaccine policy for the
You allowed the public comment about employees not being vaccinated.
If you have something to say about the agenda item number 4, please do so. You have 50 seconds left on your time.
Yes, I will. If it's that bad, shut the senior center down. But I also want to find out how and why employees' vaccination status is being released to the public.
Okay. Do we have anybody else who would like to speak? Anybody else want to speak up?
Hi, I'd like to speak up. My name is Diana Ploss.
Yes, go.
I just want to know what authority you have, what law in Massachusetts gives you the right to mandate that the seniors have to get a shot in order to go into the senior center. And I know, as somebody who has elderly parents, if one of my parents didn't want to get the shot, that would be devastating for them to not to be able to socialize because they were being discriminated against for not getting something that they don't feel is right for them. So could you cite the Massachusetts law that allows you to do this?
Again, this is for public comment session. It's not a question and answer period.
But don't you think it should be? Because how are people supposed to know what law? I mean, does the Board of Health make laws? From my understanding, the Board of Health is not allowed to make laws. That's not in their purview.
Aren't you from Swampscott?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Do we have somebody else here who would like to speak?
I would like to speak.
Go ahead, please.
My name is Lynn Edwards, and I live at 3 Hawks Meadow Lane in Hadley. And I just wanted to say a couple of things. One, I think that one speaker, Deborah Levinson, spoke what I'm most familiar with when she was talking about the vaccine and what it accomplishes. And the other thing is, I think it was Jill who said that if you do have the vaccine, even if you get sick, you're not as sick, which lessens the load for the hospitals around us and the doctors and nurses who are exhausted. And I think that's very, very important. And on top of that, I see that people are objecting to being vaccinated, but I don't know that these same people objected to their children being vaccinated from all of the childhood diseases that all of our children would get if they weren't vaccinated. And I don't see the difference, except that elderly people are older and they're frail.
Okay, thank you.
Because this is not a vaccine. It's gene therapy.
I agree.
Not a vaccine.
Okay, who else would like to speak?
Remember, this is poison.
Who has not previously
It says
spoken?
no historical testing either.
Here, when it's your turn, you were given the stage the platform to speak, and please remain quiet while others have their turn.
It's poison.
Else here who would like?
I agree, it is poison.
Okay, we don't have any other.
The virus. The vaccine is the virus.
We don't have anybody else here who would like to speak?
I'd like to speak.
Go ahead, please.
Kill on the seniors.
My name is Jennifer, and I am here to see what's going on. And I'm actually here to speak to the public as well, because I've been to the other cities and the other meetings, and the Board of Health isn't really listening to the people. They're asking where they're from, which is public is invited to these meetings. So why are you asking where somebody's from? What does it matter? I think her point was very valid. I just think that these mandates are illegal and they're discriminatory. It's segregation. I think I'm just going to start wearing a yellow star on my jacket.
Yeah. Bobby came in.
Okay. And if this is what if you guys are going to do, I will no longer frequent your stores if they're going to make me wear a mask. I'll support the stores if they're not going to make me wear a mask. If they're not going to make me get jabbed, because you know what? We're going to segregate. We're going to have our own people. If you guys are going to pull this stuff, we don't need you. We're going to figure it out. So
please address your comments regarding.
I'm all done.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anybody else who would like to? Bobby Kamen?
Yeah, Bobby Kamen, 85 Mount Warner Road in Hadley. I am concerned about the tone of this discussion, and I hope we can keep it a little more civil. I do believe that the senior center wants to have a mandate for vaccines, that they should have every right to do so. I think people do have a personal right to vaccine, but I think it's also a privilege to be a participant at the senior center. And I would feel safer. I know there's a lot of different opinions. There's a lot of misinformation. There's a lot of good information on this. But if people are going to be safe with vaccines, vaccines are a public health safety issue during a pandemic. This is not like a common cold. This is a pandemic. Until we get stricter and really get serious about doing things that will stop the spread, and I do believe that vaccines will help stop the spread, then we're going to continue to have these discussions and concern about the vaccine, concern about the pandemic for many years. I support the senior center going forward. The one comment I might make, and I believe anytime there is a mandate put out, that there is a time limit on it, and that would give people an opportunity to see how things are going with it. And then if things are not going well with it, if it doesn't make any difference, then the mandate could be changed. But I do support, the seniors seem to support it. I haven't heard too many seniors say we don't want it. It's the younger people I'm hearing saying don't do it, it's discriminatory. So I support the effort of the Public Health Board in Hadley to put forward this mandate.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else who would like to speak? Yes, Melinda Nielsen? Go ahead. We can't hear you.
Sorry. Hi, my name is Melinda Nielsen. I live at 20 Middle Street. I am over 60 years old, and I do like to use the senior center. I am opposed to this motion. I know you want to do what is best for everyone, but people can sincerely and intelligently differ on what is best for everyone. It is clear that there is not a consensus on the effectiveness of the vaccine. I'm unvaccinated. I had COVID. I'm okay. And now I have immunity, according to the Norwegian chief physician in an article I'm looking at today. If you think the vaccine works, great, go out and get it. Knock yourself out. But don't make me take something into my body that has not been proven safe over the long term. I am terrified of the thought of being required to take the jab in order to use one of my town's resources. The vaccines have not undergone the long-term studies needed to prove safety. I thought we had learned that lesson with thalidomide, but apparently not. Our country was founded on freedom of conscience. Citizens should be allowed to use their own judgment to decide whether to introduce an unapproved substance into their body. Yes, no one should be allowed to use their freedom of conscience to ignore the need for safety of others, but the vaccine has not proven to save people from COVID, and being unvaccinated has not proven to be dangerous. There are so many other reasons against this, but I'm going to limit myself to that. Well, actually, I will say one other thing, which is somebody mentioned that this is against the Nuremberg Code. It's also against the UNESCO Universal Declaration on Bioethics and Human Rights. Any preventive, diagnostic, and therapeutic medical intervention is only to be carried out with the prior, free, and informed consent of the person concerned based on adequate information. So to say I cannot use a town resource is duress against me to make me use something that I do not find safe for myself. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have anybody else who would like to speak?
Yes, I'd like to speak.
Go ahead, please.
Well, my name is Scott, and I'd just like to add limiting the usage of the senior center by unvaccinated people would, again, following the science thing. I was reading an article recently that was put out by Reuters. A lot of these European countries are actually halting the Moderna vaccine as well as the Pfizer vaccine because of adverse reactions. Countries like Finland and Germany, they're in Denmark, Sweden, Norway, they're pausing the use of these vaccines. Again, the natural immunity thing is something that is real. So with these vaccines, without the long-term effects, possible side effects that could come up 2, 5, 7, 10 years down the road, and actually trying to force people into it, whether it's by coercion or thinking that it's the best thing for people to do. It's people bring up previous vaccines for polio and rubella and so on and so forth, but those vaccines have been around for a long time, and those are actual vaccines and not treatments like what we have available now. So, and I do believe it is a slippery slope thing. I think as once a town starts to implement this in particular buildings, in particular town spaces, the next thing you know, it'll be businesses, and it will be all of a sudden forced on everybody else. So I do not agree with this statute or whatever you're going to call it, referendum to have people vaccinated to use the senior center. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak?
Yes, I'd like to speak.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you. My first name's Jennifer, and I can just feel the collective eye roll of those who support such a mandate when, residents come on and speak about, these vaccines, quote unquote, being, gene cell therapy. But, I feel like maybe perhaps you're not getting enough information. So there's just three facts just quickly I want to throw out there. One is Stefan Ulrich. He's the president of Bayer's Pharmaceuticals Division. Recently in October at the World Health Summit, he got up there and he said, "We are really taking that leap to drive innovation, us as a company, Bayer, in cell and gene therapies. Ultimately, the mRNA vaccines are an example for that cell and gene therapy. I always like to say, if we had surveyed 2 years ago in the public, would you be willing to take a gene or cell therapy and inject it into your body? We probably would have had a 95% refusal rate. Our successes over these 18 months, the duration of the COVID pandemic, should embolden us to fully focus much more closely on access, innovation, and collaboration to unleash health for all." And then two other points I just want to bring up quickly. One is that literally the definition of a vaccine had to be changed in order to include the COVID-19 jab, because before the COVID-19 jab, it did not meet the definition of a vaccine. And the third point is that the definition, literally, Big Pharma has had Merriam-Webster change the literal definition of anti-vaxxer to, before it was those who oppose vaccines, now it's including those who oppose vaccine mandates. So if you love getting all your jabs, but yet you happen to respect body autonomy, you are now an anti-vaxxer. So for those who like to roll their eyes at people who make these points, I think you really should do some further research. Thank you.
Time is up. Thank you. Anybody else here who would like to speak? Okay, well, we've had about an hour here of public comment, and I want to thank everybody who took the time to come to the meeting and share their thoughts with us. We appreciate that. We're going to end the public comment. We are going to go to our agenda item 4. Discussion continues with possible vote on vaccine mandate for the senior center.
All right. So before we do that, I do have a letter from someone else, Linda Harris, Bay Road, who is in support of vaccine mandate for a senior center. And her letter was a representative of the 3 other people who contacted in support of requiring a vaccine mandate for the senior center.
Okay. Margaret, do you want to?
Yeah, so we should put the vote then. And basically, I guess
if you have any other comments, I have some things that I want.
Yeah. There's over 822,000 people who died in this country because of COVID. So it is a very serious concern. And I do read the data, and I read New England Journal, I read JAMA, I read Lancet, and yes, we certainly do know that receiving the vaccine helps lower the risk of serious disease. So that needs to be, I want to be on record for supporting that. The other thing is, excuse me, I did not interrupt you when you spoke.
Okay, the public comment is over. This is our, we're now listening in the Board of Meeting.
Your 2 minutes are up. Thank you. The other thing I would, the other thing I guess is just that in regard to someone's accusation that the Board of Health has been telling people who are not vaccinated, telling others what people's vaccination status is wrong. It has never come from me or from anyone from the board. So I have that was an insulting accusation to me. Other than that, I am done.
Okay, I would like to speak here before we proceed. The Hadley Board of Health is an elected body with 3 members with a unique set of responsibilities. The function, scope of responsibility, and rules and regulations governing the Board of Health are defined by the state of Massachusetts, not by the town. We look to do our work collaboratively in addressing the health issues that concern Hadley citizens, employees, and businesses. That said, we have authority to act that comes from the state. The Massachusetts Board of Health, through the Mass Association of Health Boards, has a legal department that serves to educate local boards of health about policy, procedures, and scope of power. Our authority is confirmed by a statement sent to us from Cheryl Sabara, JD, who is the Executive Director and Senior Staff Attorney for the Massachusetts Association of Health Boards. We have also received an opinion from our town attorney, and I'm going to read that now. You have requested an opinion regarding whether the Board of Health can impose a limitation on access to the senior center to only those that have provided proof of vaccination. In my opinion, the Board of Health has broad authority to implement policies and procedures to prevent the spread of infectious diseases. However, although the scope of a local Board of Health's authority to prevent the spread of infectious disease is broad, it is not unlimited. In fact, pursuant to GLC 111-104, if a disease dangerous to the public health exists in a town, the selectmen and Board of Health shall use all possible care to prevent the spread of the infection and may give public notice of infected places by such means as in their judgment may be most effectual for the common safety. Additionally, real estate or personal property of the town, not by law or by vote of the town, placed in the charge of any particular board, officer, or department shall be under control of the selectmen. Therefore, in my opinion, in order for the Board of Health to close or limit the use of a town-owned building in an effort to prevent the spread of COVID-19, the Select Board would need to approve and join the order effectuating the closing or limiting of access to that town-owned building. The Board of Health is going to vote on this vaccine requirement for the senior center. We look for the Select Board to endorse this policy at their next meeting as a demonstration of, and I quote from the legal opinion above, using all possible care to prevent the spread of infection. Make a motion.
All right, so I make a motion that we vote on this proposal.
I second the motion.
All right, and the motion is to require a vaccine mandate for the senior center. Is that correct?
The motion is to approve the document. That's the vaccine mandate for the Hadley Senior Center.
So I I propose that motion. Is there a second?
Yes, seconded.
All right, vote.
All right, we're going to take a vote with the roll call. Margaret Mastrangelo?
Yes.
Susan Mosler, yes. So the Board of Health has passed the vaccine mandate for the senior center. And we look to the select board to endorse this policy at their next meeting as a demonstration of using all possible care to prevent the spread of infection. All right, we are going to
wait to
move
listen
on.
to your constituents.
Terrible.
Okay, we're going to move on.
People awful.
Can vote you right out.
I told
Just
you they weren't listening to you guys.
You don't care what we think. You just do whatever you want.
Traitors.
We'll vote you out.
All right, we are going to continue, and we're going to review and vote on businesses that are up for permit renewals.
Yes.
Peter, do you want to go ahead and read
Peter.
off that list?
Okay. Those of you who don't know me, my name is Peter. I'm the administrator.
You guys are traitors to humanity.
I'm the administrative assistant for the Board of Health, and we have a number of food establishments here in Hadley who have applied to renew their licenses.
This is not democracy.
So I will go ahead and list those businesses that have applied to renew their food permits in 2022. Then the board will go ahead and
Democracy. Listen. Democracy.
The list of applicants include the Pioneer Valley Chinese
Democracy.
Here, Essalon Coffee Roasting, Hopkins Academy.
Let's go, Brandon. Let's go, Brandon.
Hadley Senior Center, Lowe's, Smith and Pet, Pride, both Pride stations on Route 9, Five Guys Restaurant, Stop and Shop Store, Stop and Shop Gasoline, Stop and Shop Bakery, Panera, Applebee's, Wildwood Barbecue and Catering, Me Tierra Catering, and the American Legion. So all these folks have again applied to renew their permits for 2022, and they've actually they've paid their fees and so forth. So I'm going to leave it to the board to approve or whatever they decide to do. Thanks.
Okay, then we, any discussion on this? Okay, I make a motion that we vote to approve the permits.
Second the motion. Let's put it to a vote. Margaret?
Yes.
Susan? Yes. Okay, we've considered those new permit, the renewals and new permits passed. We will go to number 8. Number 9. Update on COVID-19 testing in the senior center. The Board of Health, with assistance from the state of Massachusetts, continues with our public health nurse doing free COVID testing at the Hadley Senior Center. She's currently, our nurse is able to work 7 hours a week, and because the demand has been so great, it was walk-in, but now the process is to call the senior center and sign up in advance of the testing. So we were planning to continue this service as long as the state is providing us with the test kits. Do we have any update on food-related issues?
No.
Okay. Do we have any other business this evening?
Permit link, there's no update on that. No update on the food establishment violations or the budget. That's about it.
Okay. We'll meet again in 2 weeks.
What date is that?
13th.
To close the meeting now. Thank you, everyone, for
I
coming.
move that we adjourn the meeting.
Good night, everybody.